Hare Krishna. So it's very wonderful to see so many devotees coming together. Hopefully we can do this every day for the rest of our lives, and then we'll be happy. So I wanted to speak a little bit today about the proper use of the senses according to Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So we'll start out by reading one verse from the 15th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, and then just a couple of references here from Chaitanya Charitamrita. So, I'm going to read text number 10, and then I'll refer back to text number 9 of the 15th chapter of Bhagavad Gita. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Ukkamantam Vimudhana Pashanti Pashanti Jnana Chakshushaha. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, Srila Prabhupada. The foolish cannot understand how a living entity can quit his body, nor can they understand what sort of body he enjoys under the spell of the modes of nature. But one whose eyes are trained in knowledge can see all this. The foolish cannot understand.
The foolish cannot understand
How a living entity can quit his body, nor can they understand what sort of body he enjoys under the spell of the modes of nature. But when one's eyes are trained in knowledge, but one whose eyes are trained in knowledge can see all this. Reports. The word jnana chakshusha is very significant. Without knowledge, one cannot understand how a living entity leaves his present body, nor what form of body he is going to take in the next life, nor even why is he living in a particular type of body. This requires a great amount of knowledge understood from Bhagavad Gita and similar literatures heard from a bona fide spiritual master. One who is trained to perceive all these things is fortunate. Every living entity is quitting his body under certain circumstances. He is living under certain circumstances. He is enjoying under certain circumstances, under the spell of material nature. As a result, he is suffering different kinds of happiness and distress, under the illusion of sense enjoyment. Persons who are everlastingly fooled by lust and desire lose all power to understand their change of body and their stay in a particular body. They cannot comprehend it. Those who have developed spiritual knowledge, however, can see that the spirit is different from the body and is changing its body and enjoying in different ways. A person in such knowledge can understand how the conditioned living entity is suffering in this material existence. Therefore, those who are highly developed in Krishna consciousness try their best to give this knowledge to people in general. For their conditional life is very troublesome. They should come out of it and be Krishna conscious and liberate themselves to transfer to the spiritual world. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Krishnaya Bhutale Srimati Bhaktivedanta Swami Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Vishesha Shurivadi Pasyate Vishakarine Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivashari Gaura Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. This is a very instructive verse. Ukkamantam stitam. Ukkamantam literally means the last step. Otherwise, when we leave this body, that's our last step. Most important step you'll ever take. At that point, you should definitely not stumble. You may stumble here and there, but we should definitely not stumble at the time of death. So, ukkamantam stitam. What will be my situation at the time of death? And before I die, Mungjanam Vagunanditam. What is happening? I want to enjoy these three modes of nature they don't allow me to enjoy properly. So we blame it on Krishna. Why not? Krishna himself says, Maya Yakshena Prakati Suyate Sana, that I am the superintendent of the three modes of nature. So, let's blame it on Krishna. The modes of nature are bothering me. Krishna's in charge. Krishna, why don't you arrange everything so that I can enjoy? This is our general outlook on life, most people. Of course, all of us here, we have a different outlook, hopefully. But therefore, in this purport, Srila Prabhupada says something very interesting. He said, persons who are everlastingly fooled by lust and desire lose all power to understand the change of body and their stay in their particular body. So what is the problem? This was a question by Arjuna in the 3rd chapter of Bhagavad Gita, where he says, Krishna, why is it that I do things that I don't want to do? Did anybody here experience that? Sometimes I do something that I know I shouldn't do. Just like a little child. Sometimes a little child does something, our parents say don't do it, but they do it anyway. So Arjuna said to Krishna, I'm not a little child, I have no excuse. Why am I doing this? And Krishna says, Kama Esha, Krodha Esha. 2 things. Of course there are 6 things, but these are the first 2. Just like anything has its beginning and its end. So if you begin with Kama and Krodha, Kama, Krodha, Lobha, Moha, and Mada, Matsarya. These 6 things, these are our problems. And then you can amplify them or derive from them some other things like lamentation, hunger, thirst, other problems. But if we just get rid of these 6 problems, and Krishna says, Rajagunan Samudbhava, they're born out of the mode of passion. Krishna doesn't even get into the fact that krodha or anger is actually the mode of ignorance. But if you can stop everything at the mode of passion, which means, and Srila Prabhupada says it's so wonderfully in this purport, that by everlastingly fooled, otherwise it's not like we made a little mistake here and there. It's like we're everlastingly fooled. We're being constantly plagued by this desire and fooled by the modes of nature that don't let us understand why we put the body. And why don't we understand that? Because nobody wants to think about that. Who wants to think about death? Bhaktivinoda Thakur, he said that when I was in the womb, I was praying. I was suffering like anything. Because that's generally when we pray. When we're enjoying life, we don't pray. Or some people pray that, oh Lord, thank you very much. Keep it coming. But generally when we're enjoying, we don't think of Krishna because when we think of Krishna, we think of Bhagavad Gita, and Bhagavad Gita says so many things, don't do this, don't do that. So better I don't think of Krishna when I'm enjoying. Or sometimes, just like somebody just wrote me and said, we're going to have a baby. Well, I'm sure that only the lady will have a baby. Together we have this child coming, and we're very happy. And because we're going to have a child. And I was just thinking, or how long? Whenever I get a letter like that, I think, how long? How long will it last? So, the challenge in Krishna consciousness, the invitation of Krishna, Susukam Vartamabhyaya, that happiness should be everlasting. This is Krishna's desire. So Krishna desires it. Why did he make this material world so complex? And that's a very easy thing to understand. That the reason that there's so much complexity to reach that happiness is because that happiness is permanent. Okay. When he says susukam, because the happiness in this world is sukam. But susukam means that extreme degree of happiness, which is abhyaya, which is everlasting. So when you get that extreme degree of happiness, You can't lose it. Ananda Mudi Vardhanam, it must expand, it must increase more and more and more. It has to go on and on and on. So, to get that, therefore, it is the most wonderful thing that we could possibly achieve. And because it's the most wonderful thing, just like if you go into a jewelry store, or anywhere in the world, here in Trinidad, you go to some nice jewelry place, so they have something that will cost, 200 TT, 300 TT, and they have something else that will cost 100,000 TT. All emeralds and diamonds, rubies. So it's all shiny. It's all goldfish around the neck or the arm somewhere. But the highest one has a much greater price. So the price of Prema Bhakti is that we have to show Krishna that this is what we really want. I want to love Krishna. It's not just some declaration. It's not something that we show in the kirtan or we show when we're speaking. We just read that the other day in the morning, reading from Srila Prabhupada, Transcendental Diary by Hari Shorty. And he was saying that Srila Prabhupada was not interested in impressing people by a demonstration of knowledge. But he was interested in trying to take this topmost, highest spiritual nectar and make it available to everyone. Namo Mahabhadanyaya Krishna Prema Pradayate Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namne Gaura. This is Lord Chaitanya's program. That he's giving Krishna Prema freely. But giving it freely means that you get a little taste. And then you have to show that this is what I want. Because we already have another taste. We taste material nature. It's like one time Srimati Radharani was speaking to Lalita. And she said, Krishna naam hai katamadu ghao, atagao. That, my dear Lalita, I find so much sweetness in this name of Krishna. Varane charite nahima. That I can't, my tongue cannot let it go. Otherwise, but we take the Mahamantra, just the opposite. When will this be finished? So, the thing is, we're not tasting the sweetness of the holy name. Gai Gora Madhushvara, as Srila Bhakti Thakur says, that this holy name is so sweet. But why? But as Rupa Goswami says in Upanishad, but when I chant the holy name, it's bitter. When someone who is actually totally engrossed in Krishna consciousness, this is how we can test ourselves. Sometimes I see devotees, and I do it myself sometimes. We chant and we shake our head a little bit, and we feel something. We feel some happiness. But the taste is, if I really have the taste, the test is that 10 minutes later, what am I doing? Otherwise, at 1 minute I'm shaking my head like this, another minute I'm shaking my head like this. Looking at some aspect of material nature. So which head shaking do I want? This is the test. So, we can fool others. That's right, it's easy. Of course, they say you can fool all of the people some of the time, and some of the people all of the time, and not all the people all of the time. But one can become very expert at fooling others. Some people are con artists. They call them con artists. So they can fool people very easily. Just like there was one man in Europe. He was in France. No, he was in Italy. He was so expert. He made up this whole set of papers to sell the Eiffel Tower. And he sold it to like 10 people. Millions and millions of dollars. Not TT. US dollars. And all these people came to Paris, and they all had, it looked like all kinds of stamps and notarized papers and everything. And you know, he took them to notarize the whole thing, and they all came, you know, around the same time. They said, you know, then they arrived in France. They, where do we go to claim? You know, they go to some government office. Where do we go to claim? What? And so they all realized they got cheated. So expert. So, but even us, we can shake our head, and, you know. Of course, we may not be trying to do that, but we may do that, but we cannot fool ourselves. Some people can even fool themselves. They get to be so expert at fooling that I fool myself. And it's said that if you tell a lie enough, then you begin to believe it. So, but we can just test very easily. What am I doing all day long? Otherwise, after the kirtan, after my japa, can I finish my japa? Can I possibly, is it possible to finish? For Haridas Thakur, for 3 days, he was tested by the prostitute sent by Ramachandra Khan. 3 days. And he kept telling her, yeah, I would love to enjoy with you, but I haven't finished my run. And the first day he said, no problem. Use a few extra postures next time, and no problem. I'm expert at this. So, next day, at the end of the day, she was totally frustrated. She was beginning to doubt. She was beginning to taste a little bit the holy name by that association. And then, the third day, she just broke down. And she said, I cannot do this anymore. My dear Haridas, you are the greatest saintly person I've ever met. And I have to tell you that she told the whole story. I knew that from the beginning. I just wanted you to be attracted to the holy name. So this is called Jiva Doya. There are 3 things that if a Vaishnava wants to be successful follower of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, we do 3 things. First thing, Vaishnava Seva. The first thing you do is you serve the devotees of the Lord. And then from that service, you get a namaruchi. You get a taste for the holy name. That's where it comes from. The sweetness that Srimati Radharani is speaking about, that she can't give up. Even she said, just like when the gopis, a few months after Krishna left for Mathura, the gopis were, this is in Krishna, the gopis all got together. And then said, let's forget about Krishna. They all got together, let's forget about Krishna. Let's go into the forest and just have fun and forget about Krishna. Now, we're good at that. But the gopis, unfortunately, they're not very good at this. They should come to Trinidad. Anywhere on this planet, they can get some very expert advice how to forget Krishna. But they said, yeah, why are we so interested? Because Krishna, and someone imitated Krishna playing his flute. And then, yes, and when Krishna does this, and then someone else imitated Krishna speaking, and they were all just immersed in Krishna. And then they became very sad. And they said, we just can't forget about Krishna. So this is their problem. So we should make this our problem. That's why it's there. It's there to show us that this can be done. So you get this name-ruchi, taste of the holy name from serving the Vaishnavas. Because the Vaishnavas are very dear to Krishna. And especially serving those Vaishnavas who have a taste for chanting the holy name, who cannot stop. One time Srila Prabhupada, Harishwari was telling me, because I asked him, I said, I always go from one place to another, and there's always some difficulty, and some management difficulty, economic difficulty, relationship difficulty, personality difficulty. There's always a difficulty. And I said, how did Prabhupada do it? He said, well, Prabhupada was Prabhupada. But he said, even one time, Prabhupada, we went to South India, we stayed for 1 month, and Prabhupada just chanted. Just for 1 month. He just speak a little bit, no classes, no management. Just 1 month we spent just chanting. So, I mean, we was dealing with some of that. It was just like an hour a day when we would chant. So, because could we do this? Can we just go for 1 month and just chant? And that's why in Vaishnava practice we have Kartik. Kartik means, it doesn't mean like in Hindu tradition, that you don't eat this and you don't do this. It's not about not doing, it's about doing. And when you do that which is positive, Param Drishtani Vartate, as Krishna says, when you practice the higher taste, then the lower taste goes away. But sometimes we see like this whole Bhagavad Gita, don't do this, don't do that. It starts out, so many things, so many rules. And, can't do this, can't do that. Got to control the mind, you have to control the senses. That's Bhagavad Gita is very heavy. And then chanting the holy name, I have to get up before the sun and chant. Actually, Prabhupada said one time, if you get up after sunrise, this is the practice of doing. Just remember. So, we get up early and chant the holy name for 2 hours. So, then we think, when will I finish? Then we go see the deities for 5 minutes, 10 minutes, and then when will I be? Now I can do what I want. And this is generally what we do. So it says here, that Mumjanam Bhagavunandana. We don't know how to put the body, and we don't know how to what to do when we're in the body. So therefore, it says, Vimudha Anupashanti. Because we are bewildered, Vimudha. This word is used many times in Bhagavad Gita, and especially in the Bhagavatam, Vimudha, which means an extraordinarily foolish person. An extraordinarily foolish person allows themselves to be controlled by lust. And whenever there's lust, there must be anger, and there must be greed. If you get what you want, then you get greedy, you want more. And if you don't get it, you become angry or frustrated. And if you get more, or you don't get it, you become illusion. The illusion that comes from anger is that I try harder I work harder, I do harder, whatever I'm doing, I make a greater endeavor. And the same thing, it's just a different type of illusion. If I become greedy, then I try to do more. Just one is with enthusiasm, and the other is with frustration. But both result in illusion. And illusion results in madness, intoxication, sleeping, eating unnecessarily, and then matsarya. Then we see others, just like someone wrote to me, sometimes people writing to me is very instructive about how Maya works. Very few people write and say, it was so wonderful today when I was chanting my rounds, I saw Krishna. I was remembering Krishna so nicely. I rarely get that. Usually, this, that, this problem, that, this person. But this particular person said, I don't know why so many devotees have money and I have no money. What's envy? So, how do we avoid all this? We have to get this taste. So, Vaishnava Seva, Name Ruchi. And when you have Name Ruchi, then the next thing is Jive Dor. Like Srila Prabhupada is saying here. Once you understand things, because you have Jnana Chakshusha, eyes of knowledge. So I've explained many times, there's 3 types of eyes, basically. We have these eyes, which are basically useless. So useless that Bilamangala Thakur, he said, these eyes, all I do is see Maya. I had this whole episode with Chintamani, who was my partner Pradarshika Guru, reminding me, putting me back on the path of devotion. Because I went through hell to get to her balcony, and I climbed over it, even grabbing onto a black poisonous snake to pull myself up. And somehow or another he didn't bite me. And then I got up there, and she said, if you would strive this hard, to be Krishna conscious, you would be the greatest devotee. And then I realized. But then he said, now my eyes are again beginning to wander. So let me take out these eyes. Useless. So these eyes are good if they're used, anything's good if you're used in Krishna's service. Just like Queen Kunti said, generally speaking, good birth, wealth, beauty, and education, good material qualities, they can increase the material people, but they can also increase our devotional service. But for that we need jnana chakshusha, eyes of knowledge. And the eyes of knowledge, we develop them through Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam, Chaitanya Charitamrita. And then the best eyes, Premanjana Trudita Bhakti Vilochene, Santa eyes of Vidya Shu. Vidya, those eyes are here. The best eyes are in the heart. And they see through loving Krishna. They see everything. So the first step to understand for loving Krishna, we serve the Vaishnavas, we develop some taste for the holy name. That means there's some love of Krishna developing in our heart. And then, Jivedore, we want to help everyone else become Krishna. That is the real symptom, that the eyes of love are developing in my heart. When I see anyone, any person, even if they're doing all kinds of nonsense, even if they're insulting me, even if whatever they're doing, I want to help them be more Krishna. That means that some love is developing. So, I just want to read the previous verse and then read something from Chaitanya Charitamrita. Read that to illustrate this point. So, in the previous verse, verse number 9, the living entity. This is talking about any one illusion in this world. Thus, taking another gross body, obtains a certain type of ear, eye, tongue, nose, sense of touch, which are grouped around the mind. And thus he enjoys a particular set of sense objects. So when Krishna says this, a particular set of sense objects. So when Krishna says this, they're all grouped around the mind. So these three things, especially Vaishnava Seva, is great training for the mind. Because by serving the devotees of the Lord, then we start to develop a sense of service, of helping. And then by chanting the holy name, Krishna becomes present, cleanses the heart, and cleanses away Bhava Mahadvagni Nivaldanam, the karmic cause of making the heart again dirty. Because one thing is you cleanse the heart. Just like now they're burning so much plants and everything, so you can sweep your floor, and if you open the windows, like an hour later, your whole floor is covered with ashes. So if we cleanse the heart, but we don't Bhava Mahadvakti Nirvapanam, we don't cleanse away those things which are trying to usher into the heart, then it won't be sufficient. And so Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he was teaching this. Here he is speaking to, I believe he's speaking to Ramananda Roy and Swarup Damodar. So this is what he says about the mind. If you say that Krishna is an ocean of transcendental quality, and therefore must be merciful someday, I can only say that he is like fire, which attracts moths by its dazzling brightness and kills them. Such are the qualities of Krishna. By showing us his transcendental qualities, he attracts our minds, and then later, by separating from us, he drowns us in an ocean of unhappiness. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was expressing the feelings of devotees. But with us, we're experiencing the same thing. Krishna attracts us, but then Maya separates Krishna from us, and we become drowned in an ocean of unhappiness. So now Chaitanya Mahaprabhu expresses. In this way, Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu lamented in the great ocean of sadness, and thus he opened the doors of his unhappiness. Forced by the waves of ecstasy, his mind wandered over transcendental mellows, and he recited another verse. My dear friends, unless I serve the transcendental form, qualities, and pastimes of Sri Krishna, all my days and all my senses will be entirely useless. I am now uselessly bearing the burden of my senses, which are like stone blocks and dried wood. I do not know how long I will be able to continue without change. So this is how we have to feel. We have to feel that these senses and this material mind is keeping us from Krishna. And we have to meditate on this. This thing, this television, this internet, this Facebook, this useless conversation about anything that's not related to Krishna, which we all do all the time. Sometimes, even we come into the temple and we start, somehow or another Maya just takes over. We've read so many things about Krishna, we've heard so many things about Krishna, but material energy is very expert, creeping in, making us speak, say something, do something. It's not Krishna conscious. Have an attitude that's not Krishna conscious. Rupa Goswami speaks very much about attitude. The whole nectar of instruction is all about attitude. It's about having the proper attitude. And that proper attitude will allow us to be Krishna conscious. Because the proper attitude, meaning the proper outlook. And where does that proper outlook come from? It comes from being in a Krishna conscious atmosphere and hearing from others and reading ourselves about Krishna and chanting properly. Then we have the proper outlook. The proper outlook is, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, Vinadati Sunicena Gurudana Mani Namani Dina Kirtaniya. We cannot see anyone as our enemy. I remember Jayananda. Every time somebody would even say something negative, he would cover his ears and go, Krishna, Krishna. And then if he saw the person became a little disturbed, like thinking, who are you, holier than thou? No. He would say, Prabhu, it's just that I'm not advanced enough to hear about these things. You and devotees of your caliber, you can speak about these different problems with others. But I can't do that. So just excuse my neophyte position. And I heard you say this, so I'm repeating because I remember. It impressed me so much. And it was coming from his heart. And I could see that. And I never heard Jayananda. I didn't have that much association, but little association. I never heard him say one negative thing about anything, anybody, anytime. He was always positive. And he was always happy. He was so happy serving Krishna that he gave up his body just because he just was so anxious to serve Krishna that he couldn't stop to take care of his body. I remember he went to Tijuana, Mexico, to this clinic. He had cancer. So we went into the clinic and he started giving Bhagavad Gita class every day to all the patients. And everybody was enjoying it. But then the administration came and said, I'm sorry, you can't do this. I said, well, okay. And he left. What's the use of being there if you can't speak about this? He was actually getting cured. But it was so intolerable not to be able to speak about Krishna. This is something that we can all do. So then Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says something a few things very heavy, but very instructive. Of what use are the eyes of one who does not see the face of Krishna, which resembles the moon and is the birthplace of all beauty and the reservoir of the nectarian songs of his flute? Oh, let a thunderbolt strike his head. Why does he keep such eyes? This is talking about how to deal with the senses. My dear friends, please hear me. I have lost all providential strength. Without Krishna, my body, consciousness, and mind, as well as all my senses, are useless. Topics about Krishna are like waves of nectar. If such nectar does not enter one's ear, then the ear is no better than the hole of a damaged concha. Such an ear is created for no purpose. And then, the nectar from the lips of Lord Krishna and his transcendental qualities and characteristics surpass the taste of the essence of all nectar, and there is no fault in tasting such nectar. If one does not taste it, he should die immediately after birth, and his tongue is to be considered no better than the tongue of a frog. And the last one. One's nostrils are no better than the bellows of a blacksmith. If one has not smelled the fragrance of Krishna's body, which is like the aroma of musk combined with that of a bluish lotus flower. Indeed, such combinations are actually defeated by the aroma of Krishna's body. So, and this here's the last. The palms of Krishna's hands and the soles of his feet are so cool and pleasant that they can be compared only to the light of millions of moons. One who has touched such hands and feet has indeed tasted the effects of a touchstone. If one does not touch them, his life is spoiled, and his body is like iron. So, these are the senses. So if we use the senses properly, this is what we'll do. We can touch Krishna's transcendental body in the form of the deity. Remember, Srila Prabhupada says, I think it's the 9th canto, it's one purport. I just read a while back. 9, I think it's 9:15:49. This purport, Prabhupada said, he speaks about Brahmins. He said, therefore, everyone must be a Brahmin. Because by upholding Brahminical culture, of course, Srila Prabhupada says in the first canto of Bhagavatam, that there are 3 things that comprise a civilization. Brahminical culture, otherwise you support the Brahmins. Nowadays, Brahmins have to go work in a factory or something because they're not good at doing business, so they end up working for somebody else. I know one such Brahmin was so brilliant that nobody wanted to engage him in Brahminical service, so he had to just go become a teacher. That's all right to be a teacher, but he could have been teaching hundreds of devotees. Very brilliant. And protect the cows, which we're not doing. We're not upholding Brahminical culture. Because we're all somehow or another absorbed in this society. It's not everybody's fault. It's that society demands us to do so many things that we really don't need to do. And it creates in our minds and in our hearts so many unnecessary desires that we try to satisfy. And protect the cows, we're not doing a very good job of that. In a few places, Gitanagari or Nala Mayapur. The farm in France has a few cows. And a couple farms here have a few cows. A couple of devotees have a few cows. But certainly we're not doing it on a worldwide basis. And just like here in Trinidad, so many people have cows. So devotees would travel around the Bhagavad Gita. Especially the Prabhupada said in a letter to Mahatma Gandhi, he said, now you've got independence, but real independence means you should take Bhagavad Gita and teach that. Now you have everyone's attention. So give them Gita. Don't give them independence. There is no independence in this world. Only there is independence in Krishna consciousness. He didn't listen. And then the third thing is teaching love of God. So we're trying to teach love of God. But then, on the other hand, you can't give something you don't have. So we have to develop this love for Krishna. And everything that Srila Prabhupada has told us and everything he said. So either we use our senses properly, and it's difficult because the society is pulling at our senses. Just like I remember in the old Bhagavad Gita, I don't know if it's in these newer editions, but they used to have like a stairway with anger, lust, desire, and then it goes a little higher principles enough for Radha and Krishna. Some of the older devotees may remember that. I don't think the newer Gita has that. And then living entities like this, it's desire is pulling on one, lust is pulling on another, say anger is pulling his leg over here, trying to get to Krishna. So we can either use our senses properly, or we can use our senses properly means just like this. What is the use of having eyes and looking at some beauty, even at very beautiful things in Trinidad, in nice ocean, the North Shore, very beautiful shoreline, mountains. But if you see the face of Krishna, just like Srila Prabhupada, he was walking in Los Angeles and one devotee said, Srila Prabhupada, just see how beautiful the sunrise is. And Prabhupada said, no. And they said, but Prabhupada, isn't it beautiful? Because it's coming from Krishna. He said, yes, but that's not how you are seeing it. You are seeing it independent of Krishna. If you see it as part of Krishna, then you will never be lacking Krishna consciousness. And if you see Krishna, then the sunrise will not be very interesting. Otherwise, if you see Krishna's beauty, if we really have experienced Krishna's beauty, even the deity, if we really get absorbed in the deity, just like Ramanujacharya had his disciple, Dandardas. And Dandardas there was a big procession of the deity, and Dandardas was walking along with an umbrella, and over a beautiful young lady, he was looking in her eyes like this. So Ramanuja was, why is he so absorbed? So he sent his servant, call him over here. Ramanujacharya is calling me? He knew who he was. He said, why are you looking so intently in the eyes of your wife? Well, she's not my wife, she's a prostitute. I said, oh. Because she has the most beautiful eyes I've ever seen. He said, but if I can show you more beautiful eyes, will you give those eyes up? Well, of course. I'm just fascinated by the beauty of her eyes. And so he said, come with me. And he took him right into the inner sanctum of Ranganath. And when he saw Krishna's beautiful lotus eye, he fainted. But that was, why did he faint? He was right in the deity procession. Because he got the mercy of Ramanujacharya. Because of that mercy, combining that with seeing Krishna's eyes, he could see for the first time Krishna's eyes. So therefore it says here, Jnana Chakshusha. If we work on developing these eyes of knowledge, hearing regularly Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam, hearing from other devotees, getting together, just like we just read these beautiful verses from Chaitanya Charitamrita. So if we all get together and we, instead of talking about the things we usually talk about, just open up Chaitanya Charitamrita. Even if you're not a big preacher, you don't have to be a big preacher. Just open up Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam, Chaitanya Charitamrita, so many wonderful literatures, Brihat Bhagavatamrita, and just read a few verses together and discuss. And immediately, just like today, we read something very nice in Chaitanya Charitamrita. Srila Prabhupada said, he said, on the field of Vrindavan, he was talking about consciousness. If your consciousness is on the field of Vrindavan, it was a very interesting phrase. He wasn't talking about being in Vrindavan. He was talking about if you raise your consciousness to the field being the realm of Vrindavan by hearing and chanting properly, then your consciousness will be in Vrindavan. Otherwise, you don't have to be physically there. So the point is that we can all be in Vrindavan, we can all have this consciousness. And it doesn't require any great effort. Just like Srila Prabhupada in France, he said, what is the difficulty? He asked the devotee. He gave a lecture. So, what is the difficulty? Why are we not Krishna? Why do we not want to serve Krishna? So one devotee said, because Maya is very strong. Prabhupada said no. Another devotee said, because we're not chanting properly. Prabhupada said no. We're not doing enough service. Prabhupada said no. That is not the difficulty. Because of bad association. Prabhupada said no. Then one devotee finally said, because we don't want to be Krishna conscious, but that is the difficulty. That is the only difficulty. If you want to be Krishna conscious, then there is no difficulty. Then bad association, no problem. No, not interested. No. Chanting the holy name. No. If I want to be Krishna conscious, I will chant eagerly. So much so. Just like Rupa Swami says that when I chant the holy name, because I realize no jane janita kiadbir amitai. that there's so much nectar in these two syllables, Krishna, that I would want to have so many tongues. The gopis said, Krishna's beauty, when we see the beauty of Krishna's lotus face, we want to have hundreds of eyes. But instead of giving us hundreds of eyes, like Indra, he's so fortunate to have hundreds of eyes. But he doesn't use them properly. No. But not only did Brahma not give us hundreds of eyes, he gave us eyelids. He gave us 2 eyes, at least he could have left them open. We need hundreds of eyes to capture that beauty. We need hundreds of tongues to chant the holy name. We need 10 million ears. That's what the, Budevya means 10 million. I need Karna Budevya. I need 10 million ears at least to capture the nectar. Coming from what? Krishna. Imagine, if we need 10 million years to capture how much nectar is there. But do we taste it? No. We say, oh, I've almost finished my round. No. If I say that, it means that I have something else in mind. I have something else to do. I've almost finished my round. But a devotee can never almost finish his round. A devotee never finishes. Just like Srila Prabhupada says in the beginning, the introduction to the songbook, I don't know if it's in the newer edition, but I think it must be there. Prabhupada said that Kirtan Rasa is the safest place in the 3 world. That if you chant this holy name, but Kirtan Rasa, and then Prabhupada explains that Kirtan Rasa means that that you start with chanting the holy name, and you just extend it. You make everything part of that chanting of the holy name. You make everything a kirtan. Sometimes we think kirtan is great, but then when kirtan is over, what do? Then we go and have some dal puri and some nice prasad, and then what do? That's the problem. So we have to keep ourselves chanting, hearing, dancing. Actually, Srila Prabhupada says in one purport that, I'm sorry, purport. No, it's not a purport, it's my lecture. Prabhupada said, actually, a devotee's dancing is symptom that he is understanding Krishna. So that when we go to kirtan, it shouldn't be like a funeral. We shouldn't dance. Sometimes we see that. And when you see that, somebody's on the mental platform. And then you try to get them to dance with it. Why are you bothering me? So we have to get off that mental platform. Dancing and chanting with Krishna. But on the other hand, I was in Mayapur personally, I was there in 1976, and some devotees were chanting like madmen, but really, really like madmen. And Prabhupada stopped the kirtan. And he said, this type of dancing is simply lust. Prabhupada said, dancing means please the deity and please the devotee. You give pleasure to the deities, you give pleasure to the devotees. It's not meant for giving pleasure to myself or attracting attention to myself. It's meant that I am serving the deity by my dancing. I'm serving the deity by my chanting. I'm serving the deity by my cooking. Everything for the pleasure of the deity and for the pleasure of the Vaishnava. And then everything becomes very wonderful. Everything becomes very wonderful when the service attitude is there. And this all begins with Jnana Chakshusha, developing honesty. So this is a very important instruction by Krishna. All of these senses, we receive these body, our senses are grouped around our mind. So if we can elevate our mind, just like Krishna says in the 6th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, verses 5 and 6. If you elevate the mind becomes your friend. But if you degrade the mind, it becomes your worst enemy. Because it will take your senses to a hellish destination. But if you elevate your mind, then your senses will become purified. So it's all a question of the mind. And therefore, Jnana Chakshusha, stimulating the intellect, which will pull the mind out of material absorption and bring it to the platform of Krishna consciousness. is very, very important. Therefore, I'm very happy to see all of you today in Bhagavad Gita lecture, and I hope that everybody is doing this every day, whether in the temple or at home or by yourself, every day. If you do this every day, without pride, without thinking, let me learn something so I can show others how much I learned, but let me learn something so I can serve others by giving it to others, then I can guarantee, if you do that, if you read one chapter of Bhagavad Gita every day, just read it in English or in Sanskrit, at least one chapter, then you can read 1 or 2 verses in that chapter each day. Read that chapter for 1 month, and read 1 or 2 verses after you recite the chapter. It may take you 15 minutes, 20 minutes. And once you do that, then after a year, you'll be so Krishna conscious that you won't even believe, how did that happen to me? Just 15, you see all these offers on the internet and in magazines, just 15 minutes a day. Some exercise or some cure or some mantra. I remember one time I saw in an esoteric magazine, it said, just buy this CD, and in 45 minutes you will achieve what yogis did in 10,000 years. But our offer is real. If you do that, and you chant your rounds very nicely every morning, then I can guarantee. Prabhupada made many guarantees. I can only say this because Prabhupada said it. I personally can't guarantee because I'm not so intelligent. But because Prabhupada said it, he said, I guarantee, if you chant this holy name every day and you hear, then you will become Krishna. Very, very soon. Just like Krishna says. Shrindatam Shradaya Nityam. Vinitascha Prashititam. Kalena Natidirgena. Can't remember the whole book, but anyway. Last one. But it says, if one hears with faith and devotion, and one endeavors with great enthusiasm, then in very short time, Krishna will enter the world. Very quick. So this is the guarantee from the Bhagavatam, from the pure devotee, Srila Prabhupada, and witnessed by so many devotees who are experiencing this, and you see them absorbing Krishna consciousness. So this is for all, this is what we're doing. Otherwise, Krishna consciousness, chanting, all these things will be painful. And we'll see it as something I have to do. We shouldn't think of Krishna consciousness as something I have to do. We should see Krishna consciousness, we should see everything else as something I have to do. Like taking care of this body, eating, sleeping, oh, now I have to do this. Of course, if we're taking Prasad, then that's nice. But yeah, let me finish this quickly so I can hear more about Krishna. So, this is the attitude that will bring Krishna consciousness into our lives. So anyway, I'll stop here. These are some thoughts on this verse. Is there any question? Any quick question? Yes?
The three modes of nature is in control of our activity. Then what good is our free will?
What good is our freedom?
Our free will.
Yeah. What good is it?
When
Because by free will we can transcend the freedom. That's how good. That's what it's good for. Otherwise, free will. Srila Prabhupada said that free will means exercising Krishna consciousness. That is the free will that we have. That's not something that's coming by karma. There's one verse spoken by Muchukunda, which I can't remember because I haven't gone over it in a long time. Since Chaitanya tried to read that in Bhagavatam. And it basically says that after the living entity has wandered through so many bodies and suffered so much, then one will finally become disgusted with material life and will come in contact with the devotee. But in the purport, in the Bhagavatam purport to that, it says that, actually Jiva Goswami says it's just the opposite. That sometimes things are put in this order so that the most important thing comes last. Just like folding money, where you can put the big bills on the inside or the outside. You can leave the best for last, or the best for service, and then the rest becomes disappointing. That's like material life. You put the big bill on the outside, then I can enjoy it. Oh, wait a minute, it's all one. I remember one time I was exchanging money, and what was the name of that place? It was everybody went there to change money on the black market. So, of course this is going to go out on me, but anyway, that's all. That was many years ago. So I went, and then they real quick, they tried to do it real quick, gave me a big stack of money, and wanted to take the dollars. Wait a minute, I put the dollars in my pocket. And I opened it up, it was all paper inside. Like they went to all this trouble to print this paper that on the outside looked like rupees. It was just paper. Big stack of paper. You give me rupees. And then he came in and said, police are coming, police are coming. I said, no problem. I have my mango shake here. I just bought a mango shake. And finally he said, okay. Okay, so here's your rupee. So it's like that. The free will means that I have the opportunity. Krishna gives us the opportunity. That's the only free will we have. Otherwise, everything else is destined. But there is a certain amount of free will that creates future destiny. So the living entity always has a little amount of free will, but it's manipulated by the present modes of nature, like you say, which are pushing us. So it becomes so minimal. But Maya is so expert that she makes us think that, oh, I'm making all these choices. Very, like, I have my intelligence, I'm just making things, my life is going so nicely, and I'm just making the right choices. But free will means, real free will means exercising this opportunity. So Jiva Goswami says, when you get the fortune of the pure devotee, then you can stop wandering in the cycle of birth and death. Because even by suffering, as Srila Prabhupada says here in the purport, everlasting lust means it will just go on and on until we get the mercy of the light and Krishna's holy. So that is free will. Free will means Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. But some people feel like that's imposition. As Prabhupada said one time, this old man is leaving this great burden. Speaking about the Acharya. This old man has left us this big burden. Worshipping the deity, chanting. I want to be free. And that is our freedom. That is our freedom. So anyway, I think it's time for the program. We'll stop here. Any other question, we can speak outside afterwards. Thank you all very much for your kind attention. Srila Prabhupada ki, Sri Gaur Nitai ki.